Hi guys. Last few days, been watching lots of debates going on social media, um, and some of the debates are about specific issues. Some of the debates are about other issues. But on social media, most debates, whether it's about trans issues, whether it's about Black Lives Matter, whether it's about Brexit, whether it's about independence, they follow a similar sequence of events and dynamics as debates about football, who should play Batman in the next film, basically any discussion that involves opposing points of view. So it begins with a contentious statement, right? A contentious statement obviously being how someone on social media interprets it. For someone else, it might be a statement of fact. It might be a truthful experience. So the statement goes up, someone decides it's contentious, and they contend with it. They put forward their point of view. And that's where the trouble starts straight away. There are so many other subtle things that inform why we would post something on social media, why we would respond to something on social media. There are such vast distances between us and the people that we think we're talking to. There's also the fact that a lot of us have opinions on issues that we actually don't have a lot of experience with directly. We might know people, we might have read up about it. Basically, every single time we are interpreting information or every time we are communicating information, there are so many points in the trajectory along which it's being expressed or interpreted that it's being cut with something else, someone else's take, someone else's mood, someone else's bias, your mood, your bias, your take, your resentments, how you caricature the worst elements of a particular school of thought, and how, when you're responding, you subconsciously are responding to those imagined caricatures. So we all know that in every single tribe, there's going to be the people who are genuine, the people who are moderate, who are open to different perspectives, the people who are radical, the people who are more angry or aggressive. And then you just got the bad faith actors, right? And they break into kind of two categories. One, they're just kind of psychopathic, right? They've got very little empathy. It's all about them. It's all about their gratification. It's all about what they want to extract from it. They don't want to contribute anything to it. Then you have the other element where it's not necessarily as malign as that, but people who have emotional problems or are emotionally immature or are naive. And after a while, those people kind of just poison the well and the discussion just curdles. And then really there's no point in having it anymore because the people on this side are only talking to the worst elements on this side, as are the people on this side talking to the worst elements on that. And both sides conflate the worst elements with the whole opposing perspective. So they begin to see that mean-spiritedness, that nastiness, that aggression as intrinsic to that particular point of view. If that makes any sense. And while I'm not saying that similar dynamics would not arise in a debate taking place within a town hall, or even some kind of face-to-face online discussion, I think in the absence of all of the other means by which we communicate, body language, gaze direction, tone, where we're able to infer intention from what other people say, then discussing anything of any consequence on social media is ultimately pointless. Now, here is the problem. This has become the primary means for most people to discuss things of import to them. So what it tells me is that on one hand, we're wired to connect, and on the other hand, we're not evolved to connect using this technology in its current form. This technology is beyond what an individual human mind is able to comprehend. So much is happening. There are so many layers to every single interaction, everybody that we engage with, and all we have is the words on a screen. But just think about it, right? I'm not saying that the debates are just because social media doesn't allow for communication, or that we should be looking at human the limitations, the glass ceiling of our nature for solutions to why discussion is so difficult to have. Obviously, there are serious issues that need to be debated, serious issues that need to be discussed, serious changes that need to be fought for, and serious grievances that need to be addressed. Absolutely. But I think when we go into social media, we're only thinking about those things because those things are easier to think about. It's very counterintuitive to go into social media and try and remain mindful of the fact that you are a lemming. Do you know what I mean? In many respects, you're a lemming on a platform that incentivizes you to misunderstand people, that incentivizes you to behave inauthentically, a platform that uh, ultimately thrives and profits from every misapprehension, every mean-spirited comment, every sarcastic remark, extracting from it all the time more data from you, more information from you, ultimately more wealth and more power from you. Now, whatever your perspective on capitalism, socialism, economic systems, we have to acknowledge that that is a fact of what is happening right now. This is the ulterior aspect of all of the discussions and all of the debates. On social media, situations tend only to escalate. And then on Twitter, for example, you've got less than 4% of the population using that site, but because the people who use that site tend to be your more kind of socially mobile, good earning, well educated classes, then what they experience and what they talk about, that becomes the news, even though it's a tiny percentage of people. So straight away then it's creating a lopsidedness in media, because so many news stories now, I mean, just look at the last few days, all this stuff around J.K. Rowling and the trans debate, and this is basically something that's happened on Twitter, right? And it's international news. So everybody in the world is reading about it and is being told it's really important. Now, I'm not saying it's not important, but what is it that made it important? It was because a bunch of people on Twitter argued about it and felt strongly about it. And what they argue about and what they feel strongly about is goes right to the top of society's to-do list. Whatever it is. This week, next week it'll be something else. And at no point, all the angles that this has been covered from, all of the commentators have written about it, every single take on this issue, no one has written about social media. No one has written about the interplay between this technology and our nature as a species, how we communicate, how we click up with other tribes to derive a sense of meaning, of solidarity. Primitive stuff. Think about this, right? Speech, right? Some linguists even speculate that language evolved in us as a thinking tool, right? It was ultimately for us to be able to contemplate things and think about things. Being able to speak came later, right? And out of all of the different stages of evolution that our communication processes went through, speech was the most recent acquisition. So before we were able to speak and deal with language, we were communicating in a range of other ways, and it was all non-verbal. It was all about close proximity, our minds able to map and navigate small communities with relatively low numbers of familiar people. This is how we are wired. What social media shows is everything happening at once. Everything that we think is going on out there that we're learning from social media involves so many assumptions for us to conclude that that is the true picture. And if language was our if language was our most recent evolutionary acquisition, then that is the one ultimately that is not being road tested as effectively as the others. That's why it's easier to communicate in a room with other people, even if you disagree aggressively. There are so many other ways that we are determining what is being communicated, who we are communicating with. And all social media offers us is text on a screen, and sometimes an arbitrarily limited amount of text, which hinders and distorts the communication further. And when you really begin to contend with that fact that we are trying to talk through with different levels of expertise, different levels of language, different communication abilities, when we are trying to work through some of the world's most intractable problems using just text on a screen, you really begin to become aware of how absurd we really are. And sometimes this awareness, I can keep it in the forefront of my mind, but only for so long, because the minute my instincts are threatened in other areas, I get into a Twitter beef. Someone says something that rouses my suspicion or my defences, and that kind of that sort of prefrontal cortex aspect of my brain, the critical reasoning, the bit that's evolved most recently, it just goes offline, and online comes this fucking reptile brain with me at the seat of a fucking military grade communication technology. Reptile brain, military technology. I don't even know why I'm sharing this, because I know most people aren't going to give a fuck. Nobody's going to listen to it. But in the final analysis, this is the stuff that they'll say about us. This is what they'll say about us. They'll say they couldn't get their fucking heads around the fact that they didn't perform any risk assessments on any of the things that billions and billions of people got access to. And this ultimately was their downfall. There's no agreed reality from which different points of view can diverge. You know, social media itself incentivizes us to produce content to cater to some of the worst intuitions out there. You know, even in my time, it used to be you had a bad intuition, you went out, you said something stupid, someone pulled you up for it, and then you course corrected, or you didn't. Now, if you have terrible intuition on a specific subject, you just Google it, and you can just go and find your own fucking monoculture of music, talk, radio, magazines, fiction, all of this, non-fiction, that all just confirms and reconfirms and strengthens and validates what you want to hear. It's mental, innit?